FC Cincinnati was on the road this week and against a rising Toronto FC. We saw a whole bunch of new stuff out of the squad, which is great if you just so happen to be podcasting about it, because that gives me and these guys a whole bunch of new material to look at and go over tonight on this episode of Cincinnati Soccer Talk. We want to dive into all these new FC Cincinnati looks, rising players, and also how the club can keep the streak alive, both as they head into this international break and after it. Before the rest up, though, Nashville still looms, and they might be reeling as an MLS club, but they also can't be overlooked. I'm Boston Brazel. I'm joined tonight by Bryan Biedenbach, Jeffrey Tebbets, and Mr. Brian Weigel. The show works like this. We dive into our best and worsts of the week. Those of you watching live, go ahead and participate, throw those in chat. And then we will get into the week that was before we bring in a guest, Tim Sullivan. We're going to do a little bit of jersey swap tonight since we got Geoff on and a midweek match. So we'll bring in Nashville's Tim Sullivan to talk about the midweek matchup. And I'm looking forward to this episode. Let's dive right in. I guess we will meet the team and get into the best and worst. We'll start with you, Bryan Biedenbach. How you doing, bud?
I'm good, man. Yeah, doing well. I spent my weekend refinishing a table, and good to be on the podcast and getting out of that smell, the polyurethane and stuff. So who knows what'll come out of my mouth tonight. So we're jumping into the best and worst right away. Is that what you kind of explained here right before we went live?
Yeah. Why don't you just lay it out there? We got to move things along. We got a guest tonight and everything.
Yeah, let's do it. My best, man, I'm going to go with just more players getting into the attack. They're getting into better positions, getting involved in the offense. Things are starting to click. People aren't getting in Lucho's way as much. They're getting into spaces where Lucho can see them and slot the ball through. And I think part of that, maybe we'll get into as we go, is the attention that Kevin Kelsey is drawing. He was murdered all night, double teamed, knocked around, pushed around. He's drawing he's just drawing a lot of attention, getting other guys in some spaces. So that was my best, is just seeing more people involved in the offense. My worst, all the head injuries that are seemingly being faked in MLS these days. There seems to be an advantage to going down and holding your head instead of taking that penalty on the sideline and waiting to come in. So the Toronto torpedo that came in and took out Celentano there at at that one point and just holding his head, wasn't a fan of that. Not a fan of all the head injuries, or the fake ones anyway. So there you go. My best and worst.
No, that's great. If we have a little bit of time later, I'd love to dive into that, because you think it's just real quick, do you think it's a spinoff of the new rules? Is there always going to be a way around a rule when you make a new rule?
Yeah, I think so. I think right from the start when the new rule was enacted, guys are milking the clock. They're finding new ways to milk the clock. If I can't stay down for 20 seconds, if the medical staff has to come out, I'm going to find something else to do to milk it. So I don't know. I think there's a way around everything.
Mm-hmm. Now, this one was weird. I'll give you that, because the ref had a yellow card in his hand and then he put it away.
Yeah.
That's so weird, but we'll dive into it. All right. Jeffrey Tebbets, how you doing, bud? How was your Memorial Day weekend?
It was good. It was surprisingly busy. I wasn't expecting to have 4 days, to use if you count a little bit of the Friday time. I went to a play. We went to Taste of Cincinnati, which was always fun. Love to go and go see all of the food trucks available. Shout out to Texas Joe's Tex-Mex. Great brisket there. But also, finally getting into a pool today. It feels like there was just too much going on. I'm exhausted after this weekend. I think I need another 4-day holiday vacation.
But
I'll go into my best and worst. I'll go worst first. I was really disappointed by the defense this weekend. For everything that we'd been promised about, Ian Murphy gelling with Matt Miazga and Miles Robinson, I feel that the team just was not ready for a high-powered octane offense. They really did not know how to handle things with Insigne on the side. And, an own goal hurts again. A penalty in the box hurts. This is, I'm hoping that this does not become a headache that appears more than one time. But I felt the defense just needed to pick it up, and they didn't have it for most of the second half.
Okay. I'm going to push back on you there a little bit, Geoff. Okay. So I've been seeing this like, oh, our defense is terrible. Yes, we conceded 3 goals. Toronto had an XG of 1.3. That just boils down to the quality of a $25 million Italian who's played at the top levels of the game. And they had PK and an own goal.
Yeah. But at the same time, the own goal and the PK came from especially, why was Matt Miazga so far ahead on that penalty call? Because he was way out of the box challenging Insigne, and then Orishano couldn't come back and protect the box. That led to Miles dragging down his defender, and so it's still it doesn't show up on the XG, but it's still a brain fart that happened. I hope that's not a sign of things to come.
I wonder how much of that too, Geoff, not to cut in too much on your best and worst, but the defense on our wing backs weren't playing well. They weren't playing great defense. They were getting up the field, but Orishano was getting cooked in the back there. So I think that was stretching our 3 center backs and getting them into positions they aren't normally.
Yeah, they don't play defense. How does Luca, we're not going to say his last name because there's a big debate on that right now. How does Luca burn people going forward, but when he's running backwards, he gets cooked?
He's getting burned because he's so far ahead of the ball. He's not. You can have speed for days to come back to the ball, but if you're way up the field, then you're still going to have to burn a lot of your fuel to get back there.
Yeah.
Get back on my board here. Best, I'm going to say, it was good to see a promising matchup between 2 teams that are not in the bottom of the tank. I mean, back when we joined MLS, we were the worst team in the league, and we were playing Toronto and getting smoked at bad times. And then when we finally got ourselves out of the gutter and we, won the Supporter Shield, it was Toronto that was in the tank, and they weren't playing very well. So now finally we have 2 teams that have promise of a really good push into postseason. I know we're only talking about midseason right now, but Toronto is a talented squad that once they get Bernardeschi back in and they're able to play 90 minutes with him, they are a solid team. They're going to challenge a lot of teams that should be beating them.
I wrote them off after the past year, where they've struggled, and Toronto proved to me that they're a legit team. And I think that they're going to give a lot of clubs difficulties this year. I'm not sure they're a complete team. To Brian's point, they've got a really, really good, talented player. And when we didn't see their best, because they obviously had a yellow card situation with one of their other key pieces. And so when everything's firing on all cylinders, it's going to be a really tough team to beat, I think, Geoff. Good points. Appreciate it. Brian, you popped in there for a little bit, so our listeners have already heard your voice, but welcome into the show. Hope you had a good weekend as well, and we'll get your best and worst.
Well, first off, if your body's not hurting from copious amounts of yard work or a ridiculous amount of alcohol this weekend, you're not doing Memorial Day right. No. Thank you for the memory and the service to all of our fallen servicemen and women out there. So thank you for giving us our freedom to be able to do this show tonight. My best is that we played, and it's cliche, whatever. We played how I want a top-looking team to play, seeing out a match. Yes, we conceded 3 goals, but we didn't take our foot off the gas. We didn't bunker and lose possession like we did the past season. We were able to still progress the ball through the midfield. Pavel Buka is my man crush of the hour right now. Unsung hero, still getting the ball up there. And it's like Yamil Assad coming on, making a little bit of an impact. DeAndre Yedlin getting that time in there. Good substitutions in man management by our staff that allow us to still play at a high level when we're facing a team that was cooking in versus Toronto. So a lot of respect to them. I think they got a lot of attention this weekend out of MLS press circles for the quality that they had versus Cincinnati. So I'm just glad that we're developing as a team, and we'll touch on this later. We still have the ability to get better, and yet we're on a 7-game win streak. We have the ability, not saying we are, Geoff. We have the ability and the funds, hopefully, to do so. That blows my freaking mind. My worst is that we're cooking right now, knock on wood, and we're going to have like a 2.5 week break after Wednesday's game versus Nashville. So I guess it means a show or two off, whatever. But I can't believe it. Like, didn't we have this last year? Like, we were like doing really, really well, and we had like a 2 or 3 week international break, and came back and we're just like, ugh.
It took us a second to get fired back up.
I want to blame Bupenza and his Gabon charades last year, but I guess it's kind of good because it allows, Yakubo to get healthy and Bupenza to have that much more time, and Corey Baird, who's injured. I mean, we're definitely carrying some knocks. Yedlin's still not great. I'm interested to see who starts on Wednesday versus Nashville, because Kevin Kelsey hasn't gone 90 minutes in how long? 10 months, 9 months, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
So we're gonna be struggling. I don't want to put those excuses out in the world right now for Nashville, but yeah, just we're doing so well. I just hate that we're gonna be gone for a little bit.
You could start this new up and coming star called Sergio Santos.
Wow.
Are you talking about the break? Like right after I think we lost 1-0 to Orlando. Then there was a 2-week break, and then we drew against Philly and Montreal on the road last season.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever is later on in the year.
Yeah, I
Middle
mean,
to late.
it was good to at least not have a 2-game or 3-game losing streak produced out of that. But I see what you're getting at. I mean, you want to have momentum as in any form you can, but you take a look at like Lucho's ankle after some games, and you're like,
sure,
I think you could really use a week off.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Lots of you guys have been throwing out your best and worst. We've got a lot of Luca Oriano in the chat, deservedly. I mean, obviously MLS thought he was their best as he made team of the week this week, and he was the player of the match day, or whatever they call that now, right?
How about that? Did Barrial ever get one of those?
No. Brenner, Lucho, and one maybe Barrial did. There's only been 3.
Is it too early to say that Luca's better than Alvaro?
Somebody looked at those numbers.
Yes.
Like
it is too early.
Too early.
Somebody looked at those numbers. I thought it was was it the XG per game or something like that? Some sort of number, and they're like, oh, he's ahead of what Barrial's averages were. But you looked at Barrial's numbers last year, and he was cooking with gas last season.
Yeah. Luca might be ahead. Barrial was here a year before, though, right? Where he was a little bit
2 years.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
he was 2020.
Maybe he's on a faster timeline, but I don't want to put that kind of pressure on him yet. I mean, brace is hard to ask for every week. But what I do like about him is his flexibility, easy to change position. That's what we're also seeing here. Rupesh has got on Facebook. Luca with a great match, another echo there. Worst defense has been looking sloppy the last couple of matches. Do want to touch on that in the back half of the show, Kevin, because I just kind of want to know if it's just the way we played or if it's a symbol of something different. Basically, my main point is, how do you score 4 and not let a few go in? I think that's a little bit of a style difference there, or who you have out on the pitch and how you're playing. So we'll dive into that a little bit. My best of the week was the streak continuing. I kind of echo Pat Noonan when he said, we cannot, if you watched his presser, one of the most important pivotal pieces I think he said this week was, you cannot win week in and week out and continue streaks like this, especially later in the season, and everything ride on Lucho Acosta. Like, that is obviously a great thing, and he will rise up and he will do great things. But in order for FC Cincinnati to truly be great, whether that's, and Pat Noonan said this, whether Lucho has an off night or teams figure out how to close him down, other players have to answer. And this was a big sign that other players can answer in the best of ways. This was really a quiet match for Lucho on the score sheet anyway. And that helps FC Cincinnati bolster, I think, its credibility and then players to watch out for. My worst, FC Cincinnati 2 finally lost their winning streak to Miami. And for some reason that hurt. I care more about it than I think I normally do. And I'm kind of bummed out, but they're a young team and they're going to be ups and downs. And so I'm looking forward to getting back out and watching them again here soon. Almost drove out for that game. So, all right, let's keep on moving here. I know we have Tim Sullivan soon, but until we get him on here, let's talk about the win 4-3 at Toronto. Just one match this week, and it was a barn burner. If you weren't on pins and needles for this entire match, you're not a human being, Brian. What do you think? I mean, at first we 4-3, but we went down. At one point, we were losing this thing. What do you think?
Yeah, so first of all, I had some company over the other night when the game was on, and every time I turned around to get someone a drink or open the door to let someone in is when the goals went in. So I missed most of them, saw them on replays. But yeah, for sure, it was back and forth. It was, I think the first goal, Flores' goal, you got to give the guy credit. He put that ball in the only place Celentano wasn't getting that. The others, the own goal, the penalty, again, I think if you go back, we'll talk about our defense later. Again, I don't know. There's not much we could do on the back end, but man, the goals, it was fun to watch. I watched earlier in the day. I know it was the week before. I watched the game that was it Colorado and Real Salt Lake? Is that who it was? It was 5-3.
Yeah.
And that game was exciting. So in the same day when I was working in the garage, I watched that one, watched this one. And so I saw 15 goals in 2 matches that day. And my head was spinning. So, but I love the fight. You know, we talked about it last year. I love the fight in this team. We find a way to do it. And in the 93rd minute, Sergio Santos puts one in. Yeah, it was exciting, man. The second half, especially. The first half was a little slow for me.
Yeah, if you're not a FCC or Toronto fan, this is still probably one of the best games of the week to watch, because it's different than if somebody goes up 3 and then, you know, like the Dallas game, you had three goals and then come back to tie. Cool, but I like these where they're back and forth.
Yeah,
and the lead changes, or you're going back to a draw, back and forth, way more exciting. And not these type of soccer games don't come around every week, Geoff. You have to appreciate them when you get them.
On the other hand, this felt very reminiscent. When I spoke with the guys from Toronto Till I Die, both in their YouTube podcast and also for Jersey Swap, we reminisced a little bit about the FC Cincinnati Toronto 2 games that we used to play. And some of those were back and forth barn burners. 4-3, I think in 2018 at home, we survived Tsubasa Endo's hat trick just to have Corbin Bone get himself a brace and win that game late in the game. The clincher in 2017 at TFC2, our good friend Justin Hoyt with a late goal to win that one. These were the games that made me feel like Toronto was a big squad. And it was good to get that back. Like I had said in my best and worst, it was tough enjoying the games of the past because one of us was so bad, the other was going to make the playoffs. So to have this game where both teams felt like they could knock out not only each other, but the likes of the Crew, Inter Miami, Real Salt Lake, they knew that they had potential to be the best team in the league.
Mm. Yeah, let's talk about that first goal. Dado gets kind of beat by help me pronounce this because I'm on the spot now, so all of a sudden I'm going to forget. But Insigne, I never could say his name right. So
Insigne.
Insigne.
Thank you.
I
know how to say it when I don't need to say it. That's the problem.
This is Matt Mizaga all over again. Yeah. Oh my goodness.
So Insigne
Insigne
beats Dado, And Coach Noonan, after the match, kind of wrote it off as a young guy that needs to learn how to do things better. I know, Kevin, but and I know he's a famous player, yada yada yada. But kind of said, hey, it's a young guy that needs to mark better, needs to be better there, but also new to the league, new to this kind of stuff. Is it just a bad matchup? Like, should he have been on such a big, high profile player?
I don't think you see anybody stopping that goal. It was Insigne with the corner kick.
With the corner kick delivery.
That was headed in by Flores, who has really been a really good pickup for Toronto in the midfield.
Mm-hmm.
No one's stopping that goal. That was off of the side of his head, going away from the goal, and there was no way that Roma was going to get his hand on it.
Hit the post. I mean, it hit the post literally. So there was nowhere he could have gotten that. Getting beat off the corner. That's going to happen. He's a forward, right? I don't know. You can't. I don't know.
So it's not just marking to you; it's unstoppable.
I'd
it's
say
a great play.
It's hard to beat that.
All right, all good. Luka and Halsey switch sides was a pretty cool adjustment. We don't see that every single week, and I think it's getting a lot of credit, at least nationally, from what I've seen on a lot of the articles of Pat Noonan being able to make a difference. I think Toronto did counter it. They did also switch their defenders to match it a little bit after, 10, 15 minutes later. But so I'm not sure it was the masterclass that's being talked about, but it was cool to see, and I think it did provide at least a short-term immediate impact. Overall, though, there's so many goals here. There's so many things. I'm not gonna burn through this thing. What do you guys want to talk about?
I want to jump in and talk about. I think Luka on switching, playing the inverted wing back on that side. That's what he came in as. That's what all the highlights we saw of this guy playing. That's what he was doing. And I think, he loves to cut in. We see it on both sides of the field, whichever side he's playing. He loves to cut in, but it's that extra touch he doesn't have to take now, because it's already when he cuts in on his left foot. You saw 2 quick goals that he didn't even have to think about. He didn't have to make a move. He didn't have to touch it. He was already in position. So coming in from that side, I think that I like seeing him out there. I don't know how he'll do defensively on that side versus the other side, if it'll be any better or worse, but maybe it can't be any worse. But I think that's his natural position. I love seeing him over there.
Yeah, wasn't it Coach clamoring for it a week or two ago? Just because he doesn't really use his right foot anyway.
Right.
Well, I think both his goals are from the off the left side. If I'm not mistaken, they're both pretty similar, far right post shots, beating Sean Johnson. But I will say on the Kevin Kelsey goal, the ability to kind of put that press on the center back, win that ball, to be able to still get a great shot in on Johnson that deflects to Kelsey. Well, I think Luka's goals were tremendous. I think the Kelsey goal is one that European scouts will look at time and time again for his maturity, his composure on the ball, getting that deflection, taking one additional touch to just get that little bit more space to get him a little bit more comfortable, and then sending that power shot from distance. Like, how many times are you seeing guys go Shane Graham, like, directly through the uprights on that shot versus hammer it past Sean? I think that, to me, was the goal of the evening. And that, to me, is what gets me more excited for Kevin Kelsey. It's like you have to question, like, what the heck did Shakhtar see or not see out of this cat to not play him? And he's got 3 goals in 5 games, whatever it is, here in Cincinnati. So just keep more and more. Want to see have him keep getting more opportunities. We'll see what he looks like this week. But outside of that, Luka had, he had 2 goals, pretty much not an assist, but created that other scoring chance. So great job from the young guys this weekend. Again, how many times have we said that the last 3-4 shows? Young guys. not to mention Dotto having 2 or 3 great chances as well.
I will say something really good about adding to both of these in terms of composure. Both of the goals from Luka, I felt demonstrated composure within the team. Both of them came off of plays where the team could have easily raised their hand and tried to stop the play and ask for Victor Rivas to blow the whistle.
Yeah.
First play, Dotto went down on a pretty blatant takedown atop the box, but Luka still picked it up, put it in after a quick touch, and Rivas didn't blow the whistle. So that's good composure by the team to keep playing. Same thing on Luka's other goal. Sergio Santos gets control of the ball in the box, gets taken down pretty blatantly, and he was pretty dramatic with the dive. I thought the Russian judges probably would have given him a pretty good score out of that.
Dive!
He looked pretty when he went down. It wasn't a dive. He looked very pretty going
It
down.
would have been a penalty on
It was
VAR
a penalty,
check. Yeah,
but it was one of the most
it would have been a
glorious falls from grace that I saw there. But to get back onto that, Luka, without hesitating, without raising his hand and looking for a penalty, just first touched that one past Sean Johnson. So it tells me a lot about the composure of this team and the attack. And also, I have to give it to Rivas. He played a really good game to swallow the whistle when he had to. You could argue that he didn't give the yellow card on that head injury in the box. I'm willing to overlook that if both players are okay. If it was something where obviously the Toronto defender didn't have a concussion, but if Roman did, then I would have really been, looking to see where that yellow card went.
Well, we'll see how much his bells rung this week when he has a short turnaround to go against Nashville. See if we get Alec Can or Evan Leroux.
Yeah, it would be nice to see one of the backups play, I think.
Yeah, especially versus a team like Nashville who just can't score.
You guys, I feel like you're doing that because Tim Sullivan's in the chat. You're just trying to get him all fired up before he gets on here. No.
Watch. I just totally jinxed us with like a 5-1
yeah,
loss.
You did. You better be careful.
We did have one of our worst losses ever against Nashville. I think it was like 6-3 at home.
Yeah, I mean, it's like 6-1. And was that? Or no, that I was thinking the Forest Lasso game. That was Minnesota.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's the one. Yeah.
Who wasn't he a Nashville guy too?
Why'd you even bring that up?
We did
Poor
send him
Forrest.
Yeah.
Poor Forrest did go down this week with an ACL injury. So
I saw that.
Bases. It breaks my heart, man.
That's awful. I feel bad for him. And Tampa Bay needs him too. So it's kind of a bummer. Oh man. All right. Well, I forgot to give him a shout out at the top of the podcast. Let's get before we get Tim in here, let's do that. If you have not had your AC inspected prior to this summer, call our amazing 2024 sponsor, Apollo Home, or schedule an appointment online at apollohome.com. They also do plumbing, electrical. Reach out to them. Again, you can call or book online at apollohome.com. We appreciate them for keeping CST the first half of our show running here in 2024. Shout out. And let's bring in Tim Sullivan to talk a little Nashville SC. Brian, can you work your magic with the screen here, bud? And then thank you. And we'll start talking about this midweek match before we get into our international break. Hey Tim, how you been?
Oh, not so bad. It's been a busy week in the Nashville world, but I guess that's MLS for you.
Sorry to pull you out of your Memorial Day weekend, but before
no, it's all good. No place
starts.
I'd rather be.
No, we appreciate you coming on. Geoff normally does a jersey swap podcast, and I'm not sure if he's going to get it in this week. He might still surprise us, but it is a Wednesday game, and that's tough. So we're going to do a little jersey swap on here, which I'm going to actually throw it to Geoff. Geoff, you do the honors. You ask away. What do you do?
What do? I bring in the best guests from around the country to give us the perspective from the opposite side. And Tim's been with us a few times, so I thought I'd bring him back in.
Nice.
Member of Club and Country, one of the better outlets down there in Nashville. But Tim, I think probably the biggest news that had been coming out of Nashville, out of everything, is the dismissal of Gary Smith. I think that's the elephant in the room that people want to talk about, mainly because that happened after a big 2-0 win over Toronto. How about that? Can you sort of tell us a little bit about, was the writing on the wall when that happened, or was that more out of the blue?
Yeah, it's kind of been trending in that direction for a while. The timing was pretty interesting. Wes and I, my co-host Wes Bowling on the Club and Country podcast, have been saying, you know what, it doesn't really make sense. It probably makes sense for Nashville to fire Gary Smith at the end of the season. It doesn't really make sense to make that change mid-season. And when you see a 2-0 win, and then all of a sudden the next day it's Gary Smith has parted ways with Nashville Soccer Club, it comes as a little bit of a surprise. It also tells you, first and foremost, that was about as ugly as a 2-0 win can get. And secondly, that move was already in the works, that was going to be made regardless of what had happened against a depleted Toronto team. And I think when you saw, again, the way that Nashville played against Toronto, even in victory, it didn't kind of change any of the negatives that fans had been feeling, that the front office had been feeling about the way this season has been going. So it's something that was inevitable, and it was just a matter of timing. And even if the timing was surprising, as it was surprising for, I think, basically everybody, it still felt like something that was coming down the pike eventually.
How do you feel it was justified that, his sacking? I think for the longest time we had seen Nashville as a team that had a lot of potential, but the offensive side maybe just didn't quite have the players in place. What do you feel was missing from his work that maybe might have justified?
Yeah, he was pretty open, especially last year and at certain times this year as well, about saying, hey, like, I'm doing the same things that I've been doing for the last 3, 4, even going back to the USL days. I'm doing the same things, and it's just not achieving the same results. I'm not pulling the right strings. The players don't seem to be reacting to it the same way. And, to a certain extent, that was him trying to save his job, saying, hey, I'm not doing anything wrong. But at the same time, when the head coach is saying things like that, it's also saying, tacitly, hey, maybe I'm not the guy anymore. Maybe I cannot get this done. If all the bags in my or all the tricks in my bag are not working anymore, all of my motivational tactics are no longer getting the same sort of results that I have in the past. And I think a lot of people would say even the results in the past were not necessarily the most exciting, even if they were brutally effective at times. It's the sort of thing where, hey, if this is kind of a one-trick pony sort of coach, and that one trick is no longer working, I guess you can really see why the front office is saying, okay, we've got to make this change now, because we want to not only change the results on the field for this season to continue the streak of having made the playoffs every year of this club's professional existence, but also we kind of want to just change the vibes and have a bit more of a positive vibe going, not only for the rest of this season, but going into the offseason. If a head coach isn't hired by the time the offseason rolls around, there will be a very different narrative around a Nashville SC team that's in the midst of an exciting coaching search, rather than one that kind of seems to be more of the same as it has been for the past 5 years.
Hey, if I can I jump in here? Because we went through a head coach change, and then a change, and then a change again. A real team that would make sense. With Gary Smith gone, do you think you have with the players on the pitch today, you can play a more exciting style of soccer, give those fans at home something to kind of cheer for instead of these draws? And when I look at the Nashville fan base, that seems to be the biggest complaint is we pay a lot. We pay a lot of money. We go to these games and they're boring.
Yeah, I think a lot of fans, and who am I to tell them how to enjoy their soccer? That is definitely something that had been a big issue for people, saying, hey, I don't care what the results are, this sucks to watch. And at times it's really hard to argue that was the case. I think firing Gary Smith is not going to be a panacea in that regard. You have a really exciting player in Hani Mukhtar. You have some potentially exciting pieces around them, but when you look at the first couple games under interim coach Rumbo Montale, they were possibly even worse in terms of exciting attacks. So it's not like that immediately changed the fortunes in terms of what you are seeing in terms of an entertainment product. It did not necessarily improve what you were seeing in terms of results either. So, again, Gary Smith, I think there's a pretty good argument that he was not going to be the guy anymore, but I don't think that the midseason firing is going to make, at least not the 2024 edition of Nashville SC, suddenly play exciting open soccer. They have a couple pieces in place, and maybe under an interim coach, they kind of let loose the strings a little bit and say, hey, let's try and maybe we'll lose some 6-3 games instead of some 1-0 games. But I don't think that's necessarily, they don't have the players to go out there and suddenly be 2019 LAFC just because the coach is different.
I mean, Sam Surge is a pretty good attacker, so got to give him props. I think 7 goals in 14 total matches. But let's talk about Sam a little bit. But another caveat I wanted to talk about, and I apologize if I'm stealing Jeff's questions here. You guys had a rock in Dax McCarty forever, and he's gone to Atlanta now. We kicked his butt a couple weeks ago. What's that midfield look like now, and how does it differ from the previous years, and especially moving that ball forward to get Handy in the right spots and Sam?
Yeah, a big part of, I think, this team's struggles have been not just this year without Dax, but last year you got a version of Dax that was somewhat in decline. You got a version of Dax that you only got for maybe half of the available minutes on the team, just because that's what it's like to be a 36, 37-year-old man. He's not going to be a guy who's an Iron Man at this stage. And they have worked really hard to try to find ways to replace Dax McCarty, but I think in a way that nobody but MLS fans can really appreciate. Dax McCarty was so important to what this team did for the first 3 years, first 3.5 years even, you could say. And they haven't found a way to replicate him offensively. They found guys that can play pretty good defensive soccer from that holding midfield position. They've got Drew Yearwood, who they got from New York Red Bulls. They got Sean Davis, who they also got from New York Red Bulls. And they have Anibal Godoy still, who was Dax's midfield partner for the better part of those first 3.5 years for this club. And Godoy is also getting up there in years. I think he's only like 33 or 34, so he's not quite as old as Dax. And he's maybe a little bit more when he is available, he still has a bit more of his youthful burst. He is also available probably even less than Dax was over the past year. So it's a situation where Nashville has not been able to get the depth and quality at the same time in the midfield that they need to replace Dax. And they simply don't have guys who can progress the ball in the way that Dax could on the dribble, on the pass. They've tried to find those guys, and it has really kind of reverted into, because of what they have, it has reverted into even more of kind of what the stereotypical Gary Smith kind of tactics are of bunker, and then maybe hit him on the long ball, maybe try and play a little bit more of a press to win the ball higher up the pitch, because if we get the ball kind of in our own end, if we don't start a break, we are not getting the ball into the attack effectively. And that's a matter of not having a player who had been the one guy who had always done that for this team.
Real quick on availability wise, I know that Miles Robinson was supposed to head out to U.S. men's national team camp Monday or whatever today, but now he's actually going to be staying in Cincinnati, going to be playing Wednesday versus Nashville. Has there been any talk on Shaq or Walker's availability?
To the best of my knowledge, I have actually not caught up with Nashville in the interim here, because it's just a situation where I kind of was expecting. Those guys are supposed to report on Tuesday, and I have expected Shaq to show up with that report. And frankly, they haven't had him for much of this year. He had a hip issue for I think he's played maybe 120 total minutes, so they're kind of used to playing without him. They might let him go on schedule with the rest of the U.S. men's national team, just because there's no adaptation to what they've been doing necessary, because they've gotten used to playing without him so far this year.
Yeah, you guys have a toughie. For us, it's the last match before the break. For you, you have to come here and then go back home and try to give the fans a win. Versus, I think, a very doable. It's not like Nashville's been terrible. You've got your last 2 draws and a win. It's just that they're 0-0, 1-1, and I think that you guys are looking for that answer after Gary Smith from where I see. But it's New England Revolution, who are not doing well at all. So what's the priority this week? With youth, are you going to see rotation on Wednesday and then an all-out fest on Saturday, or are they going to go for both?
Yeah, I think at this stage in the season, when you look, I guess, pragmatically at what this team has available, what this team has had available over the course of the year, and I mentioned Shaq has been out for a lot of the year, but I think part of the results and part of why I thought it wouldn't make sense to fire Gary Smith midseason was because they haven't had a ton of their top players over the course of the year. Surridge has been out. Tyler Boyd has been out. Walker Zimmerman has been out for most of the year. He's also only played like maybe 200 minutes so far this year. He played in the opener and then finally returned just a couple weeks ago. I think when you look at kind of that injury situation, you look at playing a team that is kind of moved into one of the pole positions for potential Supporters Shield, certainly one of the best teams in the East. You look at it and say, man, maybe it is time to pack one in a little bit. We have seen this team do that in the past. They have heavily rotated for midweek games, including somewhat recently. Their most recent win against Toronto FC was a pretty heavily rotated team. Of course, Toronto FC also is down like 7 or 8 starters due to injuries, red cards, all sorts of issues for TFC at that stage. So it is a situation where it wouldn't surprise me if you see some rotation against Cincinnati, because they know that if they are going to get 3 points out of this week, they most likely come against New England. And so that's a situation where you want your best available squad on the pitch against those guys.
Now, this Nashville team actually came into TQL last season during the League's Cup, and shocked us, shocked probably half of the country. And you guys actually went all the way to the League's Cup final. Barely lost it against Miami there. I think looking back at that, how do you feel this team could put something together to get a good result against FC Cincinnati this week?
Yeah, I think it would come down to, ironically enough, playing the most Gary Smith soccer that it is possible to play, which is playing in a back five, protecting that back five with 2 holding midfielders, and hoping that you can hit on the counter. I don't think this team is going to go in there and say, okay, look at everything that Cincinnati has. Look at what the table looks like right now, and look at what we have. I think they probably see that and sort of say, all right, maybe we play as conservatively as we possibly can and hope that something works out. I think they would be thrilled with a 0-0 result at this stage. I think they would honestly be less thrilled with a 1-1 result. If they get a 1-0 result, though, that's precisely what they're going for. And I think that would be the game plan, to play as conservatively. It's a really difficult word for me to say today. Conservatively as possible, and hope that you get a moment of magic from Hani Mukhtar or from Tyler Boyd. Maybe a guy like Jacob Schaffelberg, these guys that have the speed, these guys that are providing basically all of the attacking punch right now. Maybe you get a set piece goal from Sam Surridge or Walker Zimmerman, and that could be enough in a game if you get down to the fundamentals defensively. I think one of the problems this year is that they have not executed those fundamentals defensively as consistently as they have in the past. That's why Gary Smith is gone. But if they can kind of get back to that and do what they are used to doing over the past 4.5 years, I think it's something that could really kind of change the way this club views themselves if they were able to steal a result in Cincinnati. And they will do everything they can from a tactical perspective. Again, I think it wouldn't surprise if there was some rotation here. But from a tactical perspective, I think they will try to eke out a result and hopefully eke out a win.
Give me a players to watch out for. We know about your main stars and obviously Zimmerman in the back. But what's changed from last year to this year that fans that are in the stadium can really narrow in on and say, thanks, Tim, for helping me out here?
Yeah, I think the really surprising piece that we haven't actually seen a ton of yet, again, speaking of all of those injuries, Tyler Boyd has been out for most of the year. I think when I mentioned all the injuries earlier, I didn't mention Surridge. He's also been out for a lot of the year. He would not be somebody who's a surprise. Boyd shouldn't be a surprise. He was one of LA Galaxy's best players last year, but he kind of got lost with everybody kind of losing their minds over Ricky Puig and kind of saying, "Oh, this is a one-man team." Tyler Boyd was really good last year. The advanced numbers really liked him. He just this year has not been very healthy. He has to, be kind of that complementary piece to Hani Mukhtar that everyone was expecting at the beginning of the year before all these injuries started hitting. Everyone was saying, okay, now they finally have a complementary creator to Hani Mukhtar. It's not just going to be about, lumping balls into Sam Surridge's head or kind of trying to get him off the shoulder of the center backs. It's not about trying to send Jacob Schaffelberg in behind. There are 2 guys that can kind of create together. They really haven't had a chance to. I think if Hani Mukhtar is on the field for 65, 70 minutes and he's able to combine with Tyler Boyd, I think Boyd is going to be somebody who really surprises people. Again, not because he doesn't have that pedigree. This is a former U.S. international, also a former New Zealand international, of course. This is a guy that kind of flies under the radar despite the pedigree. And I think that if he gets healthy over the stretch run, it could really change the way Nashville SC has played this year. It could really change the way that they have relied on Hani Mukhtar, not just this year, but basically in their entire MLS existence. And that's something that I think if you're looking for something that kind of changes Nashville's fortunes over the course of the year, I think Boyd's health is a big deal, because he could really mean it's not a Hani Mukhtar show anymore. And I think if it starts as soon as TQL Stadium, that is something that would really, I think, brighten Nashville fans' day.
Tim, if I could jump in, just kind of as a follow-up to that question, what's the player matchup that you're most excited to see, you're most looking forward to this Wednesday night?
Yeah, I actually didn't realize that Miles Robinson was expected to stick around. So I think his ability to kind of be that athletic shutdown defender against Sam Surridge. Surridge is what he's tailor-made to play what Wes and I call big dumb football, which is kind of lumping in crosses or playing route one over the top, whatever it is. Miles is the sort of guy that is not going to he's not going to be like out heighted, that's for sure. And he's the sort of guy that there aren't a lot of center backs as athletic as he is. And I think Surridge has had the opportunity to eat against some bad center backs, and he hasn't necessarily had the finishing. I think Robinson is going to be a very different matchup. He's going to have to be very smart, and he's going to have to pick his moments, because Robinson is going to be able to clean up if Surridge tries to run off of his back shoulder every single time there's an opportunity. I think Robinson's going to be able to shut that down. But if he picks his moments and kind of, lulls him into a bit of a sleep, then I think there's an opportunity for Surridge to really kind of play chess against him. And that's something that, Nashville, not necessarily known for playing chess with their tactics. And that's something that I think could create a little bit of an interesting matchup.
Sure.
Well, I wish this one was on a weekend so you guys could come up here and see us in a full force. I'm sure there'll be some Nashville fans midweek, but we're close enough that it's a shame when the league doesn't give us these Saturday ones. I know
This is standard though. Like, we've had Wednesday games versus Nashville.
Yeah,
a lot.
It's not. Speaking of not being able to say words, it hasn't been the same in reverse, because I've gone to Nashville plenty of weekends. I'm going in September. I've already got my tickets booked. Your front office is on it, by the way, so we were able to get our tickets early. So, I really will. Yeah, hopefully next year we get a solid one. We can host you guys, have you guys all out here for a nice weekend and return the favor.
Yes, I remember going up there for that 6-3 game that you guys mentioned. I believe that was a Saturday match, if I recall correctly. I don't know. I was completely working from home at the time, so it could have just been an up and back midweek match that I just kind of wrote out. But yeah, I've had a great time every time that I've been to Cincinnati, even before the MLS days. So it is something that is kind of a shame that some of these games are relegated to the midweek, for sure.
No. All right. Well, thanks for being on, Tim. We appreciate it. Club and Country has been an awesome site and podcast, so we appreciate you coming on, and go check them out.
Good. Thanks for having me, guys.
Mm-hmm. All right, and let's give a big shout out to our second half of the show sponsor, Beyond Exercise, a local physical therapy and fitness business that helps anyone get active and stay active. They've helped Nick Hagelin and Brandon Vasquez with their physical therapy and strength training needs during the off season. Ask the fellas at Beyond Exercise about the ACL injury prevention screen, which was piloted with Nick and Brandon at gobeyondexercise.com. Thanks again to Tim, and thanks to you guys. You guys, great questions there, and we appreciate it. All right, I'll give you guys the option. Brian Weigel, you've been a little quieter this episode. Do you want to go back to Toronto, or you want to dive a little bit more into this Nashville matchup?
Oh, I don't know. I guess I can leave that up to some of you guys. But if you could look so far through this part of the season and identify one or two players that have exceeded your expectations or maybe has surprised you, what would you look at right now? Because I put this out there this week that I think, we're seven game win streak. We're 2 away from the MLS record of 9 wins in a row. Mm-hmm. Yet we're not fully clicking yet. So, I mean, we have the ability to add, which we'll talk about here in our next segment, but who's the guy for you that outside like Lucho that has maybe exceeded your expectations? I'll go Geoff. Both you guys are like,
it's tough because like right now I'm just looking at a team that the starting 11 is hard to imagine being other than the starting 11. Pavel Buka is going to put in a lot of minutes this season. Obi Nobido is going to put in a lot of minutes this season. It's going to be hard to replicate that if either of them knock on particle board, whatever this desk is made of, if either of them go down. And I find those two spots being almost irreplaceable. Buka has progressively gotten better and better and better. I know I use a lot of FOTMob numbers when I look at how well a player has done during the game, but he has constantly been green. He's been 7s, 8s over this winning streak. So he's doing the job to get the ball forward. And it feels like even if it's not showing up on a score sheet, he's giving, an assist here and there. He's still one of the more important pieces that I don't think we can do without.
You say you know who your starting 11 is. Does that include Kubo or not Kubo? Because I don't know. Baird, in or out?
Baird.
That's a tough one, but I almost want to say that's a nameless second striker. That right now, if I was starting a team for the playoffs, it would be Kelsey and then whoever else. Huh. I also feel that whoever that other person is, they're going to succeed pretty well.
Last year, we had one guy off the bench that was a difference maker, Kubo. And now you have Dado, who I think would be in that category that is wildly exceeded expectations. I think we know Brett Halsey's limitations, but he still can bring something going forward. Yamil Assad.
I wanted to bring him up too.
I think he's going to be there. He's going to be that. He's going to be a dude in the last 10 games of this year. Because I think the past 3 games he's been involved in a goal contribution or at least a kill-off contribution, and I think team MVP is Chris Albright for right now, right? Come on, everything's all bright.
Brian, my answer is the obvious one, which is just Luka. What's the difference between FC Cincinnati's first 4 or 5 games to what we've seen in this run of 7? It's Luka looking more like Barial and finally finding a replacement over there.
I would add to that Kelsey. I mean, we've only seen a handful of minutes from him, a couple starts, and the kid's putting balls in the net. He's drawing attention. Brian, I think you pointed out the first match he was in, he was double teamed, just his size, and people are respecting him. I think he moves well. I was rewatching the match a little bit earlier today, and in the 10th minute, he was up on the press. Like his speed, he's pushing on the goalkeeper a little bit, but he turns and he looks at Lucho as if to say, am I going in the right direction? Like he's looking for instruction. He's looking to be coached. I think he's got a huge upside, but so far all those guys have impressed me, but a 19-year-old kid coming in and getting on the score sheet right away as often as he has been, I'm impressed with him.
And the thing I've been harking on this since the whole U22 started. It's you can't get cheap with some of these guys. Like you can get lucky, like if you identify the right people. But I mean, the statistics say these U22 players, it's a roll of the dice. And right now, in theory, you have Luca Orishano and Kevin Kelsey. I know they're not technically both U22s at the moment, but these are amazing value assets right now that we have. And Kevin Kelsey's a for real U22 style prospect that like Miami gets and Atlanta might get one and LAFC might get one. And he's here in Cincinnati right now. So, I mean, you're still missing a ton of money with Aaron Bupenza on that bench, but I 100% agree. Like we took our lumps in those first 3 years. I think Weeby was talking about this on their show this week. We took our lumps, and now we know what we have to do, and Uncle Carl's loosening up those purse strings to execute how we need to get this title. And I said this at the beginning of the year. I think this is a team that could be better than last year. And right now, not even playing at 100%.
Yeah.
And we still have some assets.
The thing,
roll into that next segment.
The thing that I feel comfortable with also, last year we were like, oh boy, what are we going to do about center back? Yeah, Mosquera is good. Yeah.
I'm still thinking about that for next year, though. We have Copa America coming up, Geoff.
I know, but at this point last season, we were like, yeah, Mosquera is punching above his weight. Miazga's doing what Miazga's got to do, but we had no idea if Ian Murphy was going to turn out the way he was. We weren't sure if Nick Hagelin was going to stay together the entire season. He didn't. But right now we've got 5 players back there that I feel comfortable in some combination putting back there and at least keeping the score low.
Does Ian Murphy's comfort factor change if Insigne was like 6 inches more onside than he was this weekend? Oh, he still scares me. I think at the end of the day, we're still side that stops the chances that statistics would say we stop the chances that we should be stopping. And to your point with Murphy and Hagelin, they're both very good at certain aspects of the game. They're short in other aspects, but overall, in the scheme of things in Major League Soccer, they're decent center backs.
Mm-hmm. 2 games with an own goal. Just one more. You think we can go to Nashville without any own goals?
You son of a!
We're just really good at scoring, man. Just really good at scoring.
If, by the way, I'm going to throw him out to the wolves for saying for that previous comment. Boston Razzle Dazzle Brazzle's wearing a Cincinnati Reds t-shirt right now, so please poo-poo him. And I've been begging for him to throw to the next segment for 8 minutes.
I know that's
Let's
why.
go.
Okay.
All right, but what Brian's talking about is we updated the roster tracker on CincinnatiSoccerTalk.com. Yeah, Ken Hedker did a great job with it. In fact, he basically wrote the article I put out this week on how much money we think FC Cincinnati has to spend this summer, what Chris Albright has to work with, and Pat Noonan. And there's obviously some questions with it. We're still a little bit unsure on some transfer fees, but roundabouts, we think a safe estimate is $800,000 to $1.5 million, which is our more optimistic side. It's probably somewhere in the middle there. Either way, it's still a decent chunk of change to play with, Brian.
So I think the thing you have to look at, Major League Soccer's getting better at being more transparent. We have 2 senior roster spots. And you have $1 million, $1.5 million to fill those guys out. And they're only going to eat half season budget charges. So maybe they're more expensive. Maybe it's a guy who can come in to replace Obi Wobodo's budget charge in a year. You have potentially two U22 spots. I don't know how that works with Kelsey and Luca. But we have the ability this year to finally bring on some pieces. Last year, we know, okay, Brenner's gone. We can bring in a DP. Outside of that, we're a little bit hamstrung. I mean, this is masterclass in roster management by Chris Albright right now. And I mean, there's a lot of things that we still have like a month and a half left to say, okay, we're short here. Okay, is that short? Do we need a midfielder to come off the bench because we feel Yakubu's better in the forward? Do we need a center back in case Miles Robinson shuts down Leo Messi and Luis Suarez, who are really old, going to Copa America? But maybe he goes somewhere this winter. That's a real possibility that Miles Robinson does not play after August 1st for FC Cincinnati. So there's a lot of flexibility, and I'm very excited to see how this could take shape because we have that ability to build upon what we're doing now. And I know it's cliche to say, oh, well, we can always play better. We can do this. We have the ability financially to make some really big changes where we may not have been able to do that last year.
I know what 2 of the things that pop up on my screen is both Orshano and Kelsey are in as loans. Do you pull the trigger to buy either of those out? That I don't think that's a question that should be answered now, but we had that same conundrum with Yerson Mosquera last season. At what point do we look at these loans and say, yeah, we should bring them in?
I don't think it matters for the budget charge because they're both U22 guys.
Yeah.
Fortunately.
Yeah, just due to the roster mechanics, it doesn't matter today or next season, but because U22s are basically designated players under 22, the way they kind of work now and the way we expect them to get, that rule is going to get changed this summer, and we think it's going to get freed up a little bit even for that 3rd spot. So Brian hit the nail on the head there, but in reality, those are expensive, Geoff. Like, I mean, ownership is going to have to put if you want to bring Kevin Kelsey on this squad next season, you're spending what, $8 million or something like that. It's up there. So yeah, he's got to produce, and FC Cincinnati ownership has to decide if they really want to bite the bullet on that.
Here's the thing: teams that want to win this league are doing that. LAFC, Miami, New York City FC, not New York Red Bulls. They're doing those types of moves, and the fact that our ownership's willing to do that, and they have the trust in Chris Albright to do that, speaks volumes.
Mm-hmm. But the moment they do, and this is not a problem for Kelsey for a while.
Don't do it.
What?
You're gonna jinx him, aren't you?
No. I think
Boston blue screen there for a second.
I was just trying to figure out what you were talking about. I think Kelsey won't really fall into the range of what do you do once he gets out of a U22 spot, because he won't even be on this team by the time he turns 24. There's no way.
Well, somebody was saying this. I would say Kevin Wallace, somebody like that, was talking about John Duran with Chicago. I mean, he played like 25 games for Chicago, and they sold him for $15 million.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, if he puts up 15 goals and then does the same thing again next year, Cincinnati is going to, that $7 million is going to be like a rounding error, because he's huge, he's young, and he's shown already that he's got some pretty good tangible skill sets that translate to the bigger stage.
And then we also saw FC Cincinnati have a pretty big signing from the Philadelphia Academy they brought over. So as long as they can get it on both ends, spend money where you can find it internationally, or and then also domestically, find the players you can find. I think it's key to grow on both ends. So
the cool thing about Sharia, how am I saying it wrong? The kid that came over from Philly is he came over as a midfielder. I guess he was behind Sullivan, who's on the Olympic team. He was sitting behind him, and Cincinnati's like, hey, we think you're pretty awesome, but we think your skill set's actually meant for a forward, not a midfielder. And all of a sudden, the kid is a Golden Boot winner in the MLS Next Pro, whatever ranks, not next MLS Next ranks. So it's there's a lot of things that are very impressive with FC Cincinnati. And I think the USMNT Prospects is saying that we are like one of the most aggressive poaching academies. I don't know if that's a great thing to say out loud, but hey, I don't care how we get them as long as we get them.
Yeah, Rupesh brought up that Kevin Kelsey is signed through 2027 with options for 2028, 2029. We know that. We know that, Rupesh, but we just don't think there won't be a trade before 2029.
A transfer.
Yeah. Well, we think it'll be kind of like a Brenner Vasquez situation where FC Cincinnati will basically be forced to sell him off. He'll probably force it.
Cool. Good for us, because if he's doing that, we're doing great things. That's what we want. It's like Xavier basketball. I don't want to have a Xavier basketball coach for more than 5 years, because that means he's like middling. Like, we want dudes like this in our program.
It's just the unfortunate cycle. Like we saw it with Barrial. No one really wanted Barrial to leave this offseason, but we just knew it was a must. And then Barrial pushed it even further, and it happened regardless. So I think FC Cincinnati sometimes likes to wait for the perfect deal, but sometimes you got to let them go regardless. All right, let's get in your final thoughts. Anything else you want to talk about tonight? Throw it in here now, and we'll start with you, Geoff.
Well, yeah, it's good to get a nice change of pace and come on the live show. I'm glad there was some room here. Glad we brought in Tim. Probably going to take a break this week, just with the jersey swap. It's been a busy last week of May into June, but because we're looking at our sort of 2-week break, we're looking to see if we can do something special maybe next week. So
great.
Last year we had brought in Pat Brennan. We had brought in Kenta Hagiwara. See if we can maybe bring somebody outside of the organization who can talk a little bit more about FC Cincinnati from their perspective, and even the MLS in general. So we'll call that maybe a laundry day version, where we want to air out our kits and see really what we've got that's brewing here. But thanks for having me on the show, and we're going to try to get that together next week.
Yeah, thanks for letting us steal your segment. We appreciate it, buddy.
By all means, take it.
All right, Mr. Biedenbach.
Yeah, I've enjoyed having Geoff on tonight, the Jersey Swap segment. I've enjoyed the segments with Coach in the last couple of weeks, so I hope we continue to do that. I guess for my final thought, man, I'm not looking forward to the break, but I am looking forward to being in Cincinnati in the Bailey this Wednesday night against Nashville, bringing some friends from Brazil and hopefully a friend from England. So we're trying to expand the FC Cincinnati fan base as far across the world as we can this Wednesday night against Nashville. And, beyond that, just looking forward to being in Cary, North Carolina in a week or so to see Natty SC play. So, lots to look forward to even during the break.
Nice. We should have you do some like live man on the street down there in
Let's
Carolina.
do it.
Justin doing that?
What's that?
Justin doing that?
He doesn't know if he's going yet. So
Oh no.
yeah,
Right.
we might have to have Bryan down there.
Let's chat.
We need to make you a YouTube expert and an interviewer expert,
I
and
think he's there already.
we'll get you all dialed in.
Let's do
Awesome.
it.
All right, Bryan, you're up.
Well, speaking about Natty SC, there's a live public training Friday, May 31st at NKU, 6:00 p.m. So go check them out. I think they said they're going to have 8 to 9 players there. It's a great opportunity to connect with guys that love the city, are flying in to train for this. I know I've seen some videos of them. Just a great group of dudes, and support our alumni of FC Cincinnati. I mean, they started it, man, and they came here, and some of them didn't make a ton of money and still bled for that orange and blue. So go give them some love. Arnett could take my daughter Wednesday night. We're gonna have a great time, hopefully down there at TQL. So be nice, don't say too many cuss words, but spend some daddy-daughter time at FC Cincinnati, which I love all three of them. We were watching the game Saturday night on the couch, and I just love, kind of why we started this whole thing is to create this club for our kids and family, and love every second of it, especially when we're winning.
It makes it easier, right?
Yeah, significantly easier than 3 years of misery in what New England Revolution they're experiencing. Caleb Porter be gone, fired here any day.
Yeah, hate to see it.
Hate to see it. Jeff's so happy.
All right, my final thought is to give a shout out to all of you that support us over on Patreon. We appreciate you. Real quick, I just want to give a shout out to Red Lee, John Davidson, Mike Hudson, Robert Stevens, Laurel Failer, Matthew Adamczyk, Riley Stephen Burke, James Denbrough, Tom Newhouse, Brian Weigel, Brian Gills, Dan Alberts, Will Kychek. Oh no, I lost my place. See, and these are the people that they still put up with me despite my name mispronunciations and me losing.
He forgot all your emails for Growler Cup 2. So
no, those actually have been on point. All right, Ian Rexroad, Carl Fight, Christina Sharma, Kyle Pohl, Rupesh, Tom Beaversdorf, Jason who's super average, Ryan Ernst, Wes Anastasi, Rob Pierce, Clifford Adams, Thomas Sepp, Pierce Johnson, Mike Prentice, David Wiederhold, Rob Cassell, Brad Weigel, Alex Carnegus, David Tingler, Patrick Lahani, Mike Bowman, Brett Sova, Kevin Cooney, Joe Max, Jack Emery, David Moore, Bob Ryan, Ryan Durkin, Bart Labita, Rob Trappell, Joe Lohr, Bill Leopold, Marine De Moray, Jose, John Caffardi, Justin Blair, Ashley Newhouse, Dan Burns, Mark Andrew Klippinger, Justin Gregory, Jeff Tibbetts, The Troll, Jackson Fight, Matt Bauer, Pete Koch, Mark Godsey, Todd Schrienbach, Eric Johnson, and Anthony Hudson. We appreciate all of you for supporting CST. If you want to jump on this list and have me butcher your name each week, you are more than welcome to do so at our website. You can hit the support tab or find us over on Patreon and help keep the lights on, and we appreciate it. And what Bryan was talking about is the Growler Cup. We also have a little contest where we pick games over on Patreon, and that's for those that I just read off, and we're having a pretty fun back and forth competition. All right, thanks for tuning in this week. Thanks to all of you guys for being great hosts in sports, and we will see you possibly next week. Depends how this Nashville game goes. And then we'll be back soon, though, after the international break. So appreciate it. See ya soon.